My sister forbade me from going on the family trip I paid for, so I canceled her ticket. So, after what felt like a non-stop year of work stress, I figured it was time to do something big for my family. I'm 29, the oldest of three, and we haven't done a real family trip in years. Growing up, vacations just weren't common for us. Money was tight, everyone was busy, and somehow, we just never made it happen. But this year, after finally saving up enough, I thought, why not treat everyone to a vacation? The plan was simple. I booked us a beachfront villa. I was covering flights, the villa, some nice dinners, and even a few fun activities. It was a gift to my family, a way to reconnect and actually enjoy each other's company without the usual stresses. My younger brother Jake, who's 26, was excited from the start. He's chill, doesn't ask for much, and he's genuinely grateful anytime something like this comes up. My parents were thrilled too. They started talking about how long it's been since we've all done something together. And then, there's Lily. She's 24, and we've always had a bit of a complicated relationship. She's the youngest, and I guess that came with certain perks, like being spoiled more than Jake or I ever were. Growing up, she pretty much got what she wanted, and even now she's used to everything being about her. But for this trip, I wanted to be the bigger person. This was supposed to be a family trip, and I wanted everyone to have a good time. So, I just told myself to roll with it. At first, she seemed excited. I sent the itinerary to the family group chat, and immediately my mom was talking about what to pack, Jake was laughing about us all squeezing into a villa, and Lily was going on about how she couldn't wait for the beach. But then, right off the bat, she started dropping these little suggestions. At first, they were innocent enough. Hey, are there any good shopping spots near the villa? Or, I'd love to try snorkeling. Do you think we can fit that in? Normal stuff, nothing weird. But then she casually dropped in, it would be so much fun if Tasha could come with us. Now, Tasha isn't just any friend of hers. Tasha is the same person who got with my ex-fiance behind my back. Yeah, that's a whole ugly story on its own, but it's enough to say that I don't exactly want to be on a vacation with her. And Lily knows this. She knows the history, knows how much it hurt, and here she was, acting like it was nothing. I hoped maybe it was just an offhand comment, so I ignored it, thinking she'd take the hint. But then, the next day, she brings it up again. This time she's talking in the family group chat about how Tasha would love this place, and I can't wait to show Tasha the villa. Like, seriously, she just acted like I'd already agreed to bring her. So I called her to set the record straight. I tried to keep my cool and explain it clearly. Lily, this is a family trip. I planned this for us, and I'm not comfortable with Tasha coming along. She didn't even pause, just immediately shot back with this dramatic sigh. Why are you being so uptight? It's just one more person, and Tasha's been going through a rough time. She really deserves a break. I was starting to lose it. Lily, this isn't about whether Tasha needs a break. It's about the fact that I planned this trip for our family. Tasha's not family, and you know our history. I'm not okay with her coming. Lily let out this exaggerated, frustrated sigh, like I was being the most unreasonable person on the planet. You're so selfish, you know that? You're acting like this trip is all about you just because you paid for it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She really didn't get it. Lily, I'm not being selfish. I'm setting a boundary. If you want to go on a vacation with Tasha, go for it. But this isn't that trip. This is supposed to be for us as a family. She was quiet for a second, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she understood. But then she laughed. This weird, almost sarcastic laugh. Fine, whatever. I just thought you'd be mature enough to let this go. But I guess not. And with that, she hung up on me. I sat there, stunned, trying to process what had just happened. Here I was, doing something nice for my family, planning this whole trip, covering everything, and she had the nerve to act like I was being difficult just because I wouldn't let her bring Tasha? The entitlement was unreal, but I tried to shake it off, thinking, okay, maybe now she'll drop it. She's stubborn, but surely she'd get the hint, right? Wrong. The next day, she started up again in the family group chat. She was making these passive-aggressive comments about how everyone deserves to have fun, and some people just want to control everything. She even said something like, I can't wait to take Tasha shopping near the villa. It was like she was testing me, pushing me to see how far she could go. I was so close to calling her out in front of everyone, but I decided not to feed into it. Instead, I texted her directly again, keeping it short and clear. Lily, Tasha's not coming, end of story. Please stop bringing it up. She didn't reply right away, so I thought maybe she'd finally taken it seriously. But then, an hour later, she sent me this long message about how unfair I was being and how I never listened to her or care about her opinion. She was turning it into this huge thing, making me look like the bad guy for not letting her bring her friend on the family trip I'd planned. I texted back, trying to be patient. Lily, this isn't about your opinion. I planned this trip for our family and I'm not comfortable with Tasha coming. This isn't up for debate. She left me on read, and I thought maybe, finally, she'd given up. But then, of course, the very next day, she's back in the family group chat, talking about Tasha again, posting stuff like, Tasha's going to love the beach, and can't wait for Tasha to join us. It was like she was just deciding on her own that Tasha was coming and wasn't even pretending to ask anymore. That's when I realized she was just going to keep pushing. She had no intention of letting it go, no matter how many times I told her no. She was trying to make it sound like I was the unreasonable one, like I was being petty and controlling, but at that point, I'd had enough. I wasn't going to let her ruin the trip, and if she couldn't respect my boundary, then maybe she didn't need to come at all. This was supposed to be a gift, a chance to do something nice for my family, and she was turning it into some twisted game to get her way. It was exhausting, but I decided I wasn't going to back down. At this point, I thought I'd made myself clear. I told Lily repeatedly that Tasha wasn't welcome on this trip. I thought she'd eventually get the hint and stop pushing. But then, just when I thought the drama might have died down, she came back with another message that threw me for a loop. It was early in the morning when I got the text from her. Look, she wrote, if you don't let Tasha come, then maybe you're the one who shouldn't come. We're all supposed to enjoy this vacation and you're ruining it with your attitude. I sat there staring at my phone, barely believing what I was reading. This was my trip, my gift to the family, and she was acting like I was the outsider. It was her choice to keep pushing Tasha into a trip that she wasn't even supposed to be part of. But somehow I was the problem? I didn't respond right away. I was honestly too mad to even type out a reply without it turning into a full-on rant. But as the day went on, she kept sending messages, making these comments about how everyone else would have a better time if I'd just give in and let Tasha come. I felt like I was being bullied into letting her bring someone I absolutely didn't want on this trip, and it felt so unfair. Around noon, she called me and I decided to pick up. I was prepared to have one last go at making her understand. She started out with the same routine. Why are you being so difficult? It's just one extra person. It's not like it's that big of a deal. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Lily, it is a big deal to me. This trip is supposed to be for us, our family, not Tasha. You know our history, and it's really unfair of you to push this on me. She didn't even pause. Well, maybe it's time for you to get over it. I mean, you're the one who said this trip was about reconnecting as a family, and I consider Tasha family. That was the last straw for me. Lily, I'm not paying for Tasha to come on this trip. It's not happening. And if you can't respect that, then maybe you shouldn't come either. I thought that would be it. But she came back with something I didn't see coming. Fine. Then I'll tell Mom and Dad that you're kicking me out of the family trip. Let's see how they feel about that. I hung up, honestly feeling more frustrated than I had in a long time. It wasn't just the trip. It was the fact that she was making everything about her. She'd even go so far as to get our parents involved, like this was some kind of plot against her instead of me just wanting to set a boundary. Sure enough, within an hour, my mom was calling. I picked up and she started with, "Honey, what's going on with you and Lily? She's saying you're being difficult about the trip and that you're not including her?" I could barely believe it. "Mom, you know that's not what happened. I planned this trip for all of us, but Lily keeps insisting on bringing Tasha. I told her no multiple times, but she won't let it go." Mom sighed, sounding caught in the middle. "I understand, but can't we all just try to make this work? Maybe if Tasha came for just a couple of days?" "No, Mom," I cut in, trying not to sound too harsh. "This trip is for us as a family. I'm paying for it, and I don't want Tasha there. This isn't about compromising, it's about Lily not respecting my decision." There was a long pause before Mom finally replied, "All right, but can you at least try to talk it out one more time? Maybe she'll understand if you're more calm about it." I agreed, mostly just to keep the peace, but I knew it was pointless. I'd already tried to explain things, and it felt like every time I did, she just twisted it around to make me look like the bad guy. But for the sake of not upsetting my mom, I decided to try one last time. So, I messaged Lily, asking if we could meet up and talk things over in person. I thought that maybe, face-to-face, she'd be a bit more reasonable. We met at a coffee shop later that afternoon, and I went in prepared to lay out everything. She showed up with this look that said she thought she was winning, like she'd already convinced everyone else and was just waiting for me to cave. As soon as we sat down, I started, "Lily, I want this trip to be enjoyable for everyone, but I feel like you're not hearing me. I don't want Tasha on this trip, and that's final. I planned this as a family thing, and this is about all of us spending time together. She crossed her arms, rolling her eyes. And you think it's fair to exclude her? She's like family to me. And I thought this was supposed to be about reconnecting. I couldn't believe it. You're making it sound like I'm excluding her out of nowhere. This is about the fact that I don't feel comfortable around her after everything that happened. I'm asking for 1 week. 1 week without her. But she just kept going. So, what, you're kicking me off the trip because I won't ditch my best friend? Lily, that's not what I'm saying, I replied, feeling exasperated. You're free to bring Tasha on any trip you want, just not this one. This trip is my gift to the family. I'm not going to pay for someone who isn't part of it. She scoffed and looked away, acting like she was completely done with me. If you can't include Tasha, then don't expect me to be part of it either. I just stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. Are you really willing to miss this trip just because you won't let go of bringing Tasha? She shrugged. Maybe I am. I don't need this stress. And honestly, maybe we'd all have a better time without you and your controlling attitude. It hit me then. She actually thought she had me cornered, like I'd have no choice but to back down. But in that moment, I knew that wasn't going to happen. I'd made up my mind, and I wasn't about to let her push me around, no matter how much guilt she tried to throw my way. All right then, Lily, I said, standing up. If that's how you feel, then maybe you shouldn't come. I'm done with this back and forth. She looked a bit stunned, like she hadn't expected me to actually stand my ground. But instead of admitting she'd gone too far, she just scoffed again, muttering something about how I was being ridiculous and selfish, and then she stormed out. I sat there for a few minutes, letting it sink in. The whole point of this trip was to have a good time with my family, to relax and reconnect. And here I was, getting dragged into this mess because my sister couldn't accept a simple boundary. But I knew right then and there that I'd made the right choice. If Lily couldn't respect my decision, then maybe she didn't need to be there at all. A few days after that heated conversation with Lily, I thought things had finally quieted down. She'd made it clear she wasn't happy with my decision about Tasha, but I figured she'd come around eventually. I mean, this was a family vacation I was paying for. Surely she'd realize it wasn't worth all the drama, right? Well, I was wrong. Very, very wrong. After a while, my sister seemed to have cooled off. She even reached out saying she wanted to help make the trip great for everyone. Then she casually asked me for the booking account info, saying she just wanted to take a look at the activities and maybe suggest a few new ones. I figured, all right, maybe she's finally trying to get along and get excited for the trip. So I gave her the info. Of course, that's when things took a turn. One afternoon, I got an email notification from the booking company. My first thought was that it was just a standard reminder about the trip coming up. But when I opened it, my heart just about stopped. Your reservation has been updated, it read. Confused, I clicked in to see what was going on, and right there, bold as anything, was the message. Your ticket has been canceled. I blinked a few times, trying to make sense of it. Why would my ticket be canceled? It made zero sense. I was the one who'd booked everything. My heart started pounding as I logged into the account, and the first thing I noticed was that my name was gone from the reservation. Instead, it had been replaced by Tasha. And to top it all off, the charge was on my card. I was furious. No, beyond furious. I was livid. It didn't take a genius to figure out what had happened. Lily had gotten into the account, canceled my ticket, and swapped it out for Tasha. Not only that, but she'd done it using my credit card, like she was fully expecting I'd just go along with it. I couldn't believe the nerve she had. It was such a blatant, deliberate move, like she didn't even care about how I'd feel. I grabbed my phone and called her, practically shaking as I waited for her to pick up. She answered on the second ring, sounding way too casual for someone who'd just gone behind my back. Hey, what's up? She said, as if nothing was wrong. Lily, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Why did I just get an email saying my ticket was canceled and Tasha's was added to the booking? There was a brief pause. Then she actually laughed. She laughed. Oh yeah, I figured it'd be easier this way. If you're going to be so stubborn about Tasha coming, maybe it's just better if you sit this one out. Less drama, right? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lily, this was supposed to be a family trip, my gift to the family. You can't just decide to kick me off and bring Tasha. That's not how this works. She let out this dramatic sigh, like I was the one causing her trouble. Look, you're the one making a big deal out of it. Tasha's my best friend and she deserves a break. Honestly, you're ruining things for everyone by being so petty. Petty. She actually thought I was the one being petty here. Lily, I'm done with this. I'm canceling both your and Tasha's tickets and you're not coming on this trip. She scoffed, completely unfazed. Oh, come on. You wouldn't really do that, would you? I already told Mom and Dad that you'd come around eventually. The entitlement was unreal. She was acting like she'd already won, like there was no way I'd actually go through with canceling her spot. But I was done with her games. Without another word, I hung up, logged back into the account, and canceled both her and Tasha's tickets. I changed the password too, just to be sure she wouldn't pull anything else. Within minutes, my phone was buzzing with texts and calls from her. "Are you serious? Why are you being like this? You're going to ruin the whole trip." She kept trying to guilt trip me, calling me selfish and saying I was overreacting. But at that point, I was past the point of caring. I'd tried to make this trip special for everyone, and she'd gone out of her way to make it all about her. Enough was enough. I'd been so excited for this trip, and now I just felt exhausted from the drama. But as much as it sucked, I knew I'd done the right thing. There was no way I was going to let her push me around, not after everything I'd tried to do for them. Later that night, Jake messaged me, saying he'd heard about what happened. He told me he understood why I did it, and that he was still looking forward to the trip. That message was a relief. At least I knew I had one person on my side. But as for Lily, she kept texting me, sending these long messages about how unfair I was being, how I'd ruined everything, how she was just trying to make the trip fun for everyone. She tried every tactic, from guilt tripping to throwing in fake apologies, but I wasn't buying any of it. In the end, I turned off my phone and decided not to respond. I'd had enough of her attempts to manipulate the situation, and I wasn't going to give her any more of my energy. If she couldn't respect my decision, then she didn't need to be there. And that was it. The next day, I focused on getting everything ready for the trip, double-checking the reservations to make sure there wouldn't be any more surprises. It felt like a weight was finally lifting, like I could actually look forward to the vacation without all the drama hanging over my head. The day after I canceled Lily and Tasha's tickets, I figured the dust would settle, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Instead, it seemed like the real fallout was only just beginning. The family chat was blowing up with messages, and my parents were calling non-stop. Clearly, Lily hadn't wasted a second to tell her side of the story, and judging by the way everyone was reacting, I had a feeling it was a very selective version of events. I ignored the calls at first, trying to get some work done and just hoping things would calm down. But finally, I knew I'd have to face it, so I picked up when my mom called for the fourth time that morning. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to sound casual, but I could already hear the tension in her voice. "Honey, what's going on? Lily is in tears over here, saying you've kicked her off the family trip. She's devastated." She sounded genuinely worried, but I could tell she was already leaning in Lily's favor. I took a deep breath. "Mom, Lily didn't tell you the whole story. I didn't just kick her off the trip for no reason. She went into the booking account, canceled my ticket, added Tasha, and used my card to pay for it. I had no choice but to put my foot down." There was a long pause, and I could almost picture her looking over at my dad, trying to make sense of what I'd said. Finally, she replied, "That doesn't sound like Lily. Are you sure there wasn't some sort of misunderstanding?" "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I have the emails to prove it. She canceled my ticket, plain and simple, because she didn't get her way. When I confronted her, she told me that if I didn't want to go with Tasha, I should just stay behind." Another silence, and then my dad got on the line. "We're just trying to understand, honey. This was supposed to be a family trip. Can't we work something out without anyone being left behind?" I wanted to scream. They were so quick to jump to her defense, as if I hadn't spent the last several weeks dealing with her pushing, guilt-tripping, and trying to manipulate me into giving in. "Dad, I tried to work it out. I told her multiple times that I didn't want Tasha to come, that this was a family trip, and she refused to listen. Then she took it a step further and made changes behind my back. I can't just let her walk all over me like that." He sighed, and I could tell he was torn. "Look, I get that you're upset, but this is really hard on everyone. Couldn't you just forgive her and let her come along?" That was the part that really stung. It was like they couldn't see that I wasn't the one who'd crossed the line here. "So let me get this straight. I pay for a family vacation, plan everything, set one boundary, and because she can't handle it, I'm the one who has to just forgive and forget." They went quiet, and I could tell they were realizing they hadn't really thought it through from my perspective. Finally, my mom spoke up, sounding hesitant. "All right, we understand that you feel hurt, and we're not trying to downplay that. But Lily is your sister, and family should come first." "Exactly," I replied. "Family should come first, which is why I wanted this to be a family trip, just us. But Lily has been treating this whole thing like it's her trip, her chance to bring Tasha, without caring how I feel about it." That seemed to hit home because they didn't argue with me after that. They knew Lily could be difficult, and they'd seen her pull stunts like this before. But they were still clearly uncomfortable with the idea of her missing out, and they kept trying to find a middle ground. "Why don't we have a family meeting?" my dad suggested. "Let's all sit down and maybe Lily will apologize and we can move forward." I almost laughed. There was no way Lily was going to apologize, especially when she already thought she was in the right. But I knew my parents were only going to keep pushing if I didn't at least try, so I reluctantly agreed. "Fine," I said, "but I'm telling you now, if she tries to twist things around, I'm not backing down." So that evening, we all met at my parents' house. The tension in the room was thick from the second I walked in. My mom and dad were sitting together on one side of the table, looking like they'd just been through a stressful day. Jake was there too, leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed, clearly already fed up with the whole situation. And then there was Lily, sitting there with a tissue in hand, putting on her best "I'm the victim" face. As soon as I sat down, she started. "I can't believe you do this to me," she said, looking at me with this wounded expression. "I thought family meant more to you than this." I wanted to roll my eyes, but I stayed calm. "Lily, you went into my booking, canceled my ticket, and added Tasha without asking. What did you expect?" She scoffed. "I was just trying to make sure everyone could enjoy the trip. You're the one who's being selfish here, refusing to include someone I consider family." Jake, who'd been silent up to this point, finally spoke up. "Lily, seriously? This trip is her gift to us. You can't just act like you get to decide everything." She shot him a look. "Oh, so now you're on her side too?" Jake shrugged. "I'm on the side of common sense. If she says no, it's no. That's how respect works." My parents jumped in at that point, trying to defuse the situation. My mom looked at Lily, her voice soft but firm. "Honey, you can't change someone's plans like that and expect them to be okay with it. This isn't about Tasha. It's about respecting boundaries." Lily looked around the table, clearly realizing she wasn't getting the reaction she'd hoped for. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. "Fine, whatever. I just think it's pathetic that she can't even let go of something that happened ages ago. Maybe Tasha messed up, but she's still my best friend, and I want her there." That was it for me. "Lily, this is exactly the problem. You're not listening. This was supposed to be for us, and I've been clear from the beginning about not wanting Tasha there. But you keep ignoring that, twisting it like I'm the bad guy for not wanting to bring someone who betrayed me." She just crossed her arms and looked away, clearly not planning to apologize or take any responsibility. I turned to my parents. "Look, I'm not changing my mind. I canceled her ticket, and I'm not adding it back. I tried to set a boundary, and she stomped all over it. This is supposed to be a family trip, and if she can't accept that, then maybe she really shouldn't come." My dad looked disappointed, but he didn't argue. I could tell he was starting to see that this wasn't just about the trip. It was about respect. My mom sighed, looking at Lily, who was still refusing to look at me. "Lily," she said gently, "we all want to go on this trip as a family. But you need to understand that you don't get to make decisions for everyone. If you can't respect your sister's wishes, then maybe you should sit this one out." Lily's face went red, and I could tell she was furious. But instead of apologizing, she stood up, grabbed her things, and stormed out without another word. There was a heavy silence after she left. My parents looked heartbroken, Jake looked relieved, and I just felt exhausted. This wasn't how I'd wanted things to go, but at least I felt like I'd finally been heard. After a few minutes, my dad looked at me and said, "We'll work through this. I know it's not easy, but you did the right thing standing your ground." And for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like maybe I had. When the day of the trip finally rolled around, I felt like I could breathe again. After all the stress, arguments, and drama with Lily, I honestly wasn't even sure if I'd still be excited for this trip. But as we headed to the airport, just me, Jake, and our parents, I realized that, yeah, I was looking forward to it. Without the tension and the constant arguments, it was like the cloud hanging over the trip had lifted. When we finally arrived in Hawaii, it felt like a weight had been lifted. There was no Lily, no sneaky surprises, no extra drama. I could actually take a deep breath and enjoy what I'd worked hard to plan. The air was warm, the beaches were picture perfect, and the place we were staying at was even better than I'd hoped. I'd planned this trip down to the last detail, and now, without the constant drama, I could relax and actually enjoy it. I took charge of the planning right from the start. The first night, we all went out to this local spot I'd booked in advance, complete with a private luau. My parents had no idea I'd planned that, so when the dancers came out and the fire show started, their faces lit up like kids seeing fireworks. Mom was especially excited, and Dad looked relaxed, just soaking it all in. Jake, my brother, leaned over, giving me this nod that said, "Good job." Seeing everyone having a great time made the whole thing worth it. Over the next few days, we dove into everything Hawaii had to offer. I'd lined up a bunch of activities: snorkeling, a boat tour around the islands, even a helicopter ride for Jake and me to see the whole island from above. With no Lily around to question or complain about every little thing, I could feel the difference. We were all able to just enjoy each other's company. But Lily wasn't entirely gone from the trip. Every now and then, I'd get a message from her. I knew ignoring her would be the best approach, but curiosity got the better of me. Her texts were, well, exactly what I expected. Accusing me of ruining her vacation, complaining about how unfair it was that I stole this trip from her, the whole 9 yards. My parents even noticed and began to see that her behavior was out of control. They started asking fewer questions about why I'd left her out, which was a relief because by this point, they were seeing it firsthand. At one point, while we were having dinner, my mom sighed, looking at her phone and said, "I just wish Lily could have enjoyed this with us, but maybe it's for the best that she didn't come." Hearing that from my mom, who usually defended Lily, was honestly kind of a shock. It hit me then that they were starting to understand why I'd put my foot down. They were disappointed she wasn't there, but they also finally saw how hard it had been to deal with her constant demands and entitlement. The trip went by in a blur of amazing experiences. Hawaii has a way of calming everyone down and making you appreciate the little things. By the time we were heading home, my family was loaded with great memories, and everyone was all smiles. Even with Lily's absence lingering in the background, the trip had been everything I hoped for. But Lily didn't take our absence well. As soon as we got back, I noticed she'd blocked me on social media and had gone on a rant about how our parents had chosen me over her. She even called Jake a profiteer for supporting me and complained about how the family only cared about me because I could afford things like the trip. It was a bizarre twist, but at that point, I was done letting her guilt or manipulate me. I knew I'd done what was best for everyone, even if she didn't see it. Weeks after we returned, my parents confided in me that they'd had a huge confrontation with Lily. She'd refused to take any accountability for her actions, and instead, she blamed them for taking my side and leaving her out. My dad had finally had enough and told her that her behavior was the reason she wasn't included, and that if she didn't change, she would continue to push the family away. A few months later, I visited my parents' house and noticed something strange. Lily's room was empty. When I asked about it, they admitted they'd asked her to leave. Apparently, she'd been freeloading off them for far too long. They'd tried to help her out by only charging a small rent, but she refused to pay and even complained about them being greedy for wanting her to contribute. My dad had finally reached his breaking point and told her she needed to find her own place. At first, Lily put on her typical act, crying, begging, saying she didn't know they wanted her to move out, but my parents held firm. My dad even went as far as helping her find a small apartment and paying 2 months' rent, just to give her a start. I'll admit, I thought that was more than she deserved, but I kept my mouth shut. At least she wasn't living off them anymore, and I figured this was their way of helping her without enabling her entitlement. In the weeks that followed, though, my mom would call with updates telling me how Lily kept stopping by unannounced, conveniently around dinner time. She even began spending the night occasionally, claiming she was homesick. My parents put up with it for a while, but then they noticed she wasn't paying rent on her new place, even though she was working. When my mom asked where her money was going, Lily admitted she'd spent it on clothes and other stuff. She hadn't paid her rent for months. Eventually, my dad had to step in again. He told her that she couldn't keep using them as a backup plan, and that she needed to manage her own finances. He was done with the endless excuses, and this time, he didn't back down. I could tell he was tired, not just physically, but mentally drained from dealing with her antics. Lily's last-ditch effort was to call Jake and ask if he'd lend her money. When he refused, she got even more desperate, asking him to borrow money from me on her behalf. Jake, who'd had enough of her behavior, told her no, and said he wasn't going to be a part of her mess. Lily blew up, calling him my bootlicker and accusing him of choosing me over her because I pay for things. She even went on a rant about how he's always been on my side. Hearing that, I realized how deep her bitterness went. But instead of feeling guilty or angry, I just felt relieved that I wasn't the only one who saw through her behavior. It was clear she'd tried to manipulate all of us for so long, and for once, it wasn't working. A few months later, Lily showed up at my door, looking disheveled and desperate. It was a cold, rainy day, and she looked like she'd been standing outside for a while. I knew I'd regret it, But I let her in, and she immediately started talking about how hard things had been for her. She wanted me to talk to our parents and convince them to let her move back in. I stood there listening to her complaints, but I didn't budge. I told her that if she wanted our parents' support, she needed to show them she could be responsible. She scoffed, calling me a terrible sibling and accusing me of being the reason our family was divided. But for once, her words didn't sting. After she left, I blocked her number. I hadn't needed to before, but I knew she'd keep pushing if I didn't. I don't know what she's up to now, and honestly, I'm at peace with that. This trip to Hawaii taught me that sometimes you have to set boundaries, even with family, to protect your own happiness. If Lily ever decides to change, maybe we'll reconnect. But until then, I'm holding on to the peace I worked so hard to find.